But what are you? What are you? Are you a great overgrown dwarf that has cut off his beard?
Oh no, Your Majesty. I've never had a beard. I'm a boy.
A boy? Do you mean you are a son of Adam? I see you are an idiot, whatever else you may be. Answer my question once and for all, or I shall lose my patience. Are you human?
Oh yes, Your Majesty.
And how, pray, did you come to enter my dominions?
This is Pints with Jack, Season 9, Episode 3, Narnia in the 80s.
Have you been looking everywhere, searching for a place where you belong? Away from the masses, among clinking glasses, where the hearth fire is on. Let the laughter welcome you in, that eagle and child din. There's room at this table, so take a seat and tuck right in. Pints with Jack. Pints with Jack.
Welcome, friends, to Pints with Jack. As mentioned in last week's episode, this month is a mini Narnia month. Last season, during Narnia month, we looked at the TV adaptations of the Chronicles of Narnia in the 60s and 70s. And today, we look at the BBC adaptation of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe from 1988. And those of you familiar with this series will recognize the opening clip from Barbara Kellerman's larger-than-life adaptation of The White Witch. And while The White Witch may be a false queen of Narnia, today we have joining us someone who is always treated like a real queen on the show, Dr. Christin Ditchfield Lazo. Christin, welcome.
Oh, it's great to be back with you all. I do feel like a queen when I'm here.
That was a good one, David.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I have been married for a while. I have skills.
Including humility.
Well, we have been fighting the internet today. Today, we're recording this on October 20th, and it was the day that the Amazon services decided to go down, breaking large parts of the internet, which is why I haven't done Duolingo today, because it's broken.
Oh.
So I'm just going to say, let's just get on, because we've got 46 minutes before Andrew has to be in his next meeting. So, quickly, what's in everyone's glasses?
Ooh.
Well, I've got a peppermint tea.
Lovely.
That is my favorite winter thing. I love peppermint teas.
We don't have winter. It's 88 degrees outside and palm trees, but whatever. Here's my Pints with Class imitation wannabe imperial pint, and I'm about to pour in some Theakston Old Peculiar.
Very appropriate.
I'm doing a little best day brewing in our Pints with Jack glass. Delicious. No idea what my wife poured for me, though. It's one of the assortment packs.
I tried to find a beer that had a white stag on it, but all I could find locally was Moosehead, which is Canadian lager, and I am drinking it from my glass stein.
Oh,
it's
that's Canadian and it's lager. I feel sorry for you.
I
might have to drink
lager.
two.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, it's appropriate because there's a lot of approximating of animals to come.
You mean in our adaptation? Nice segue.
Well,
Close enough is the order of the day.
Well, we won't cheers yet, but there's a nice looking beer.
For the sake of brevity, I can just we can cut this episode short. The 1988 adaptation did not need to happen.
Oh. Okay, so we're going to kick Matt off, and then we'll have his extra time that we can then incorporate into serious, proper commentary.
That's all it needs to come down to. Didn't need to happen.
Not a great loss.
It was. I'll give my real reasons for it.
You're all wrong. Well, we probably should cheers. So I'm just going to offer a toast to the 80s. Cheers.
Two better periods. Cheers.
Radical to the max. Cheers.
Also, 90s were better than 80s.
False for many reasons. Okay,
Yes.
next common room we do, I will lay out my ironclad case as to why the 80s is the best decade ever.
All right, I'm ready for it. I mean,
I'm with
90s,
you.
The 90s is simple. I was born in it.
There are different kinds of simple. Anyway, I watched this adaptation when it originally aired in the 80s. It was on the Sundays of 1988. And I still have them. My mum sent them to me when she was going through all of my stuff. I have homemade cinema tickets that I sent out to my friends that they then brought with them to my house on Sundays, and we would have a watch party. So, needless to say, I have a lot of nostalgia for this property.
That's why you didn't like my comment.
Well, it's also because you're wrong.
Biased.
But how about you guys? When did you first watch this?
Last night.
Timely, as always, Matthew.
All in one sitting.
See, that was going to be my other question, because I do think that this is something that definitely benefits from being viewed as it was intended to, namely an episode at a time with a little bit of space in between.
Yeah.
Sure.
I actually, I watched it for the first time when I was about 20 years old. I think it was a couple of years after it had aired, and I rented it on video for my little brothers, and we watched it together. It was an interesting experience. I found it had a much different experience watching it again in preparation for our show today.
I was babysitting, I think it was house sitting for some friends in Tennessee, and they had it. They were very excited to have had the video cassettes. And I remember I watched it. And then I also watched during that house sitting period, I watched Silence of the Lambs. And now in retrospect, I'm not sure which was more horrifying.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay, well, this next section, I was going to ask about if anybody had any opening thoughts about this adaptation. We have discovered that Matt is not only wrong, he still doesn't know how to say adaptation. Andrew is also wrong, but Christin, you said that your impression was very different between your original watch and your current watch. So would you mind sharing what that was?
Sure. The first time I watched it, I was not prepared for what it was. And this is in the era, we'd been to the theaters for all the Star Wars movies and E.T. and Back to the Future. And we had seen all these great special effects. And I put this on and I was nonplussed is the polite word for it. Somewhere in the first few minutes, one of us made a kind of snarky comment and then it was gone. We were doing Mystery Science Theater for the rest of the show. Everything that happened, we had something funny to say. And so mostly I remember just laughing and maybe not in the kindest way. So all these years, I've thought of it as really horrible and not understood. I mean, I accept that it's true that people enjoy it and like it, but how? I couldn't know. And then I watched it again recently, and I realized, gosh, these were a bunch of people who were really doing the best they could with the budget that they had and the access to special effects that they had to do something wonderful for children. And they tried really hard, and they made the best choices they could. Yeah. And it's pretty darn faithful to the book. And
That's true.
If that was all you had, I mean, it's not as bad as I remember it. And I can see why it might be very special to a whole generation of kids.
See, Matthew, that's what it's like if you still have your soul.
This is, yes, but this is great. I'm glad this is not like, 3v1. I'm glad I've got someone, allegedly that was a long, empathetic, kind, gentle way of saying she's more in my camp, that it's not the best thing, but it was caveating it. I want to say this real quick, because it piggybacks up what you said. Mary Margaret was watching it with me. She goes, this would make a great audiobook. Mm-hmm. Like the voicing of it was very good to it. And I thought that actually said a lot of kind of what my thoughts would be. My struggle with it was one very simple thing. And Christin, you said it right, though. It's like they were very constrained. I almost thought they got caught between special effects weren't there yet in terms of technological development or whatever their budget was, and what was necessary to execute on this kind of vision. And they're right in the middle limbo space in time, because Narnia is magical. The medium of your imagination is incredible. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just seeing what looks like just basic, regular scenes in life. And I was like, this is not remotely what I would picture Narnia to be like. And I understand they couldn't really change that. I mean, it is just limited resources, limited technology. And so I don't blame them. Now I will add my caveats. But at the same time, it's just such a magical thing. And when you go through Narnia in your head, it's just so different than what I experienced with this. I was just disappointed with the scenery, I guess.
So I probably would echo that. I mean, I found them very slow. I watched all 4 episodes or all 4 movies. And the last one that combines, I think, Dawn Treader and Silver Chair was better because
it's actually the other way around. It's Prince Caspian and Silver Chair. and then
Prince Caspian,
Dawn Treader, Silver Chairs by itself.
Okay. Oh yeah, Caspian and Dawn Treader. But that was right when I had fallen into my Lewis mode. That's right when he was beginning to save my intellectual life. I was reading everything I could by Lewis. And so to have a movie of Narnia was a thrill for me. The actual thing was something of a disappointment, but that was when I was kind of in my first bloom of falling in love with Lewis, and I was grateful to have it. I like how faithful it was. I like that they filmed it outside in real snow, right? Those bits, but yeah, as I watch it, I'm like, yeah, okay, not my favorite. Kristen actually found that documentary called Past Watchful Dragons, narrated by Humphrey Carpenter, and that helped as well. Yeah. And again, we have a little tidbit about that later.
Yeah, and there'll be a link to that in the show notes as well.
And David, I will place a little weight on your view of this, because what I couldn't put myself into is what was this like as a child who loved Narnia, already had their imagination in real time set, which you did going into this. And it sounds like this didn't disappoint, because that was my one concern, was this would disappoint relative to what the rich imagination was from the books. And if it sounds like maybe in your case it didn't, so that's good.
Well, I would say this is actually a really good preparation for seeing any kind of theatrical version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because any production you see in the theatre will use many of the techniques that they used here. And I saw a bunch of theatre productions around, actually I think even preceding this. So I think approaching it as a theatre production is actually a kind of a helpful lens to view this through.
Yeah.
But the way we're going to do this is we're going to move fairly swiftly through the movie itself. And I'm just going to just say what happens in each episode, just so we know sort of the boundaries of that episode. And just so we can orient ourselves to the stuff that we see on the screen. So in episode 1, the Pemseys board the train from London to the country. They arrive at the professor's house and they settle in. They explore the house the next day, and Lucy goes through the wardrobe and meets Mr. Tumnus. And then she comes back. Nobody believes her. And then later they have a game of hide and seek where Lucy and Edmund enter the wardrobe. And then the episode ends with Edmund coming face to face with the White Witch.
Faced a horrifying face.
So what did you guys make of this this opening episode and the initial characters that we meet?
I thought it was pretty faithful. Yeah, Mrs. McGrady, that was a little severe. I did like, and it led to, I think, maybe the more severe Mrs. McGrady in the 2005 version. I liked how warm the professor was.
Yeah,
and so it did seem to have some fidelity to the books. And eventually I want to get one of those little boxes with the string with the gas mask inside, just because they're in every single adaptation you see.
Just take it as like your backpack when you're going to speak in places. People will ask questions.
Yeah. I noticed the way they set up the characters on the train, some of the improvised dialogue and other things that were not in the book, but faithful enough and really kind of gave you a sense of who these children were. I thought they did a great job with that. And, you know, they seem the child actors. I Googled them all because that's what we do now, right? We look up, and none of them seem to really do much after this.
I looked them up too.
This is kind of their one claim to fame, but they actually, I thought they did a great job. They seem to really be into it and to kind of embody the roles that they were called to play.
I was watching an episode of, I think it was Hercule Poirot, and it had Edmund in there. And I was watching it with Marie, and she hadn't seen the BBC adaptation. Oh my goodness, it's Edmund.
Yes.
And I've seen them on social media lately. They're getting back together and doing some reunion or something.
That's cool.
What were you going to say, Matt?
No, that was, Andrew, I had a very similar take to you, I thought, as much as I harshly critique the adaptation.
Adaptation, say it with me.
We'll get there. Come on.
Okay.
Adaptation. Really well casted. I really enjoyed, actually, other than Aslan. I very much enjoyed the four kids. I really enjoyed the White Witch, actually. So, yeah, I thought the professor was fantastic. So I did enjoy it. Lucy, just what I would have hoped for.
Apart from she should have been blonde.
She should have been blonde. Yes, absolutely.
As the non-scholar, I missed that subs point. So, you know.
To be fair, I never thought of her as blonde until I reread it as a teenager, and I was shocked by it because most adaptations I'd seen she was brunette. It's only the cartoon where she is very obviously blonde.
Yeah,
yeah. For me, the music is amazing throughout. I love the opening tune. Da, 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 as that French horn starts playing. It just gives me goosebumps every time. And I love the visual tour of Narnia that you get as you go through the opening credits. I want that as wallpaper. So if anyone's out there that can make that happen, let me know. And Christin, like you, I noticed because so much of this is very faithful to the book. It's like line by line. The things that depart from it, jump out at me. And the fact that Edmund is jealous of his parents because they'll be right there in all the excitement. Right. They're doing really good characterization. Did you notice that there was a reference to Mummy and Nanny? So it's they're sort of going up the social strata in comparison to the Walden Media version.
Yes, absolutely.
As well as that wonderful line that the setup, nothing ever happens in the country, and it's just like, we're about to have an adventure.
Indeed.
And Andrew, you mentioned about I love Mrs. McCready, but I just like scary sort of governess sort of figures in general in literature and movies.
Well,
but
David,
the professor is so cute. The fact that he tries to do military order and they say Peter, sir, Susan, sir, and he goes Edmund, sir, and then Lucy goes, I'm Lucy.
Well, I did right in that scene how they talk about serving dinner and he's all sweet and Mrs. Creedy is not happy about this serving dinner in the study for him, and then the professor kind of like calmly but firmly practically asserts, well, I'm the boss. And the two people that need to do it are right behind you, so it's going to happen.
Yeah. I love the pun that, Mrs. Make Ready is her name.
Cute. Yeah. What did you guys think about the entry into Narnia? I thought Walden Media's version, the movie, it was a little bit more magical. This was slightly creepier, which actually in some ways is more appropriate.
Yeah. I loved reading that in the Walden movie, they did not let the children see the snow set until they first went in. And so their surprised reaction. So it seemed a little bit dark, and I wouldn't have minded kind of seeing the trees a little bit more clearly. And it's such a liminal space, a threshold moment, that I wouldn't have minded kind of, for a number of reasons, kind of seeing that portrayed a little bit more clearly. But I'll take it. You could see that there was love and faithfulness, and that covereth over a multitude of sins for me.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was just getting a sense of the like 2005 film adaptation. What was the entrance into Narnia, and it was a whiter snow. It was more of a Christmas magical snow. Versus this felt like, if you live in Michigan or the Midwest, so David will get this. This felt like January, February snow. The roads are a little mucky at this stage. Christmas is behind us. And I think that actually genuinely tilted me negatively for this movie, because I really was looking forward to Christmas snow, December snow.
What a great point. It was filmed in Scotland, right? Outdoors in winter. So they, that was how it really looked. Maybe which is why it feels a little less magical, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's appropriate, being that the Queen has made it such a miserable thing and not a beautiful thing.
Exactly.
That is,
It should be gloomy. I can support that.
I loved the tumnus. For me, he's my definitive tumnus. James McAvoy is really good. Don't get me wrong. He's very whimsical, but I really like this tumnus that we get here. And I really like the transition from him playing his pipe into Lucy's dreams. You get to see what Narnia used to be like. And also this is our first introduction to the animation that we're going to have for the mythical creatures.
Yeah.
Kristen is covering her face. It was a little jarring even in the 80s, but it's still cool.
Those were rough.
They tried.
Not entirely down.
Yeah.
When was Star Wars created?
77 is when it first came out.
So the tech was there. This was more about budget, resources.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're going to be, I don't know if the filmmakers were Christians, but it was a BBC adaptation, but it seemed like they were really trying to be faithful to Lewis, and almost maybe better than anything else apart from the weird animated colored one that was almost word for word. But you got a sense that these are people who kind of get it, who were giving it their level best.
And I will just toss out a random point here. It reminded me of one of my dad's soapboxes when I was growing up. Is he was always going on about children and attention span. And he preferred that we not watch Sesame Street, but that we watch Mr. Rogers, because he wanted us to learn to have a longer attention span. And he felt that the quick changes in children's television were teaching us to not be able to concentrate. And I was watching this and thought, it is so slow. It's driving me crazy. But, we've become acclimated to things that are so much more quickly changing and fast moving. And it's hard to sit and just let it unfold and be patient. But, it would be good for teaching kids to savor a story and not expect the camera angle to change every 1.2 seconds.
And with that, let's move on to episode 2, because this is where Lucy arrives at Tumnus's house again, and it's also where Edmund meets the witch. And Lucy returns to our world, and Edmund lies about being in Narnia. And there's also the visit to the professor's office, where Peter and Susan talk things over. But of course, Mrs. Macready's tour, or perhaps some magic in the house, chases the children into Narnia, and that's where they discover that Mr. Tumnus has been arrested. Any thoughts from this episode?
I found myself missing when they go into the wardrobe room in the 05 version, and somebody says, "Oh, you've got to be kidding!" Right?
Well, I love the fact that in the book again and again we're told how very silly it is to shut oneself up in a wardrobe, and in the BBC version it's translated as "Never shut yourself in a wardrobe, stupid."
Right. That's one thing that Susan seems like the very most reasonable, sweet, affectionate one. And Peter is clearly that. And I mention it partly because something about Peter drew me to what I now understand as like nobility, maybe not quite holiness, but there was something pure to him. And I began to love purity because of how Peter was portrayed in the books. And Christin said when we watched it, Peter and Edmund look like they're about the same age. Peter was 13, Susan was 12, Edmund was 10, and Lucy was 8, according to the experts. And so I wish that there had been a stronger Peter a little bit.
Maybe. One thing I really liked in this episode was the cutting back and forth between Lucy visiting Mr. Tumnus and Edmund's experience with the witch, because he's in the process of betraying the friend that Lucy's visiting at that very moment. And now we have to talk about the White Witch. Barbara Kellerman is awesome.
She's great.
No such thing as overacting. Gasping is great. Monologues to self are necessary. I know literally all of her lines from memory.
That was one of my positives from this. I liked her. I liked her a lot, even though I didn't like the overall thing. I thought she was fantastic.
I'm going to suggest that maybe there's a little bit of bias, David. I mean, it was a positive memory for you, and
maybe, but is it also purposefully comedic to reduce the tension for children? Because I do remember as a kid, I wasn't actually quite scared of the witch. I thought she was kind of ridiculous, and so. We'll talk about my feelings about Morgrim. Morgrim gave me nightmares as a kid. His wet mouth and his huge nose. That was terrifying.
Oh, wow.
But even as a child, I thought of the White Witch as something almost ridiculous. And Edmund as an idiot. It's like, dude, she was clearly about to do something horrible to you and has now changed her mind. It's like there is no subtlety in that. It's actually kind of like the cartoon that we reviewed.
Yes.
Barbara Kellerman is kind of cartoonish.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I did remember, although I didn't know about your reaction to the wolf, but I do remember thinking more recently as I watched it that, this isn't too scary. Every time that, it would be gory if we made the movie today, made the series today, every time it might be gory or really terrifying. It felt like they cut away, or they did something that made it, you could watch it with younger children.
Which is what Lewis does in the actual narrative. Anytime it gets scary, he breaks in and makes some kind of modernist or contemporary reference that would help kids not to be frightened, especially hearing the books read to them at night.
Yeah. And there were quite a few extra special effects. The special effects people had a spree in this episode, with the White Witch basically being a Jedi, being able to sort of pick up the Turkish delight with her mind and unwrap it, and as well as having smart panels in her tent to show Edmund where the lamp post in her house was. And speaking of Edmund, I do want to say I think he's brilliantly cast. The thought I had watching it again this time is like he has a very punchable face. He is just horrible.
Yes.
Even kind of like that very short non-canonical scene where Edmund comes in and Lucy is drawing a fawn and he picks it up, looks at it, and then just sort of tosses it aside. It's like, oh, what a turd.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch, though, that of course she would be drawing what she had seen or trying to represent it. So yeah, there are lots of sweet little touches that they added. Nothing jarring or nothing where some of the other more recent adaptations where you kind of like, oh my gosh, that's not what happened at all, right?
When we read it in my book group, we called Edmund the PLB, the perfect little beast. I love what you said about punchable face. It reminds me what Lewis said about, somebody in the Inklings, maybe it was Tolkien, expressed a heartfelt desire to burn Charles Williams. Mm-hmm. And the rest of them all agreed on Williams' eminent combustibility.
Yeah, and there were a few extra additions here. So when they go and see the professor, which and Michael Aldrich, he's the actor. I'd seen him in lots of stuff when I was growing up. The Walden Media is good, but this guy's my definitive professor as well. And particularly the non-canonical dialogue is rather delightful when they say, we don't mean to interrupt. And it says, interruptions are delightful. Otherwise, life is.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, he was good.
Well, anyway, they find themselves into Narnia, all of them now this time. And I was a little sad that the coats didn't go to full length to make them look like royalty, as they do in the book, but that's understandable.
Plus, they grabbed the coats too early. Edmund does not go with his coat to the White Witch's house.
But you know why? Know why?
Health and safety.
I watched the documentary, and they were outside, and it was really freezing. They couldn't let that little kid run around in the snow. It was actual snow, so I watched that. Mr. Beaver had a lot of complaints about how hot he was in his costume when everybody else was cold.
Okay.
So.
But they come to Mr. Tumnus's cave, and we read Morgrim's letter, and they have that cool special effect where they impose him onto the letter. And we discover he pronounces it Jardis, like TARDIS, rather than Jadis.
Yes.
The effect I actually rather liked, even if it is slightly ruined by the roar at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Do wolves roar?
Well,
that one did.
That one did, yeah. There you go. But then we come to episode 3, where it just picks straight up with Morgan's letter, and the children meet Mr. and Mrs. Beaver now without following a Robin, which is understandable since Robins are very hard to train. And they go back to the Beaver's Dam. Edmund sneaks away and then journeys to the witch's house where he meets Morgrim and tells the witch that Aslan's arrived and that all of his family is at the Beaver's house. What did you make of the Beavers and Edmund's shenanigans with the witch?
Yeah, I missed the Robin, though, because that's such a key moment, but that's me being, fussy.
I'm sure if you could have got them a trainable Robin.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mine's a little broader comment, but the Beaver section stretched a bit long, I felt like.
It was pretty much word for word from the book.
Yeah, and then the costumes were quite interesting with those fingers.
We called them toilet tissue roll costumes.
Oh man,
they couldn't move in them, could they?
No.
No. What do you make of the marmalade roll? Does that look? Have you ever had a marmalade roll, David? And is that what it looks like?
I think that is pretty authentic. I haven't had one since I was a kid.
Okay.
I have to say, eating the sardine on that bread just looked disgusting.
Well, my favorite discovery, looking up all the cast and finding that a couple of them had, bit part roles like Edmund and Poirot or whatever. But the most successful member, arguably, of the entire cast with the most fabulous career was actually Mrs. Beaver. Andrew and I have been rewatching Downton Abbey for the last couple of weeks, and there's Mrs. Patmore in one of her first TV roles. And so that was a fun discovery.
Poor lady never got out of the kitchen, did she?
But she did get out of the beaver outfit, which I'm sure she was pleased about. Because that's one of the other common things that's mentioned, that there were beaver retrievers because you had these guys in huge beaver costumes trying to walk on snow and ice. They'd often slip over. And so there were a couple of production assistants that had to run over and pick them up repeatedly.
Oh, that's funny.
Bless their hearts.
Now, at the age of 8, I found the beavers hilarious at every level. And I do think it's Kelly Shale and Leslie Nichol. They just did a wonderful job, even if their accent isn't what I then heard in my head when I next reread the books.
Right.
How does the fish jump into the pail? That's what I want.
Oh, see, I love that fishing scene. It's like it comes past and he scoops it out of the water. I wanted to know how to do that when I was 8.
This really left a mark on you, David.
Oh, really did. Some of the bits were a little cringe. Like, I really get what they were trying to do when Mr. Beaver, first of all, says that Aslan is on the move. It sort of has this montage and each of the kids trying to react differently to it. I've read the text. I know what they were trying to do. It just seemed a little not quite right. Otherwise, it was pretty much book perfect with regards to dialogue.
Yeah.
And I did love the bit when the girls say, "Oh, we'd like to help." And so Mrs. Beaver gives them jobs, and then as Edmund is poking around out back, she gives him some jobs as well, and he's like scowling throughout. And he sulks when Mr. Beaver laughs at his comment about turning Aslan to stone. And even the cinematography, I really like the way they just pulled back from Mr. Beaver, who'd been telling the story, and then you see that Edmund is gone. I mean, it's beyond unrealistic. How on earth he managed to sneak away and take his coat with him, I have no idea.
He did. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they did. Again, as I started out at the beginning, they did some really neat things, and you could tell that it was made with a lot of love, and a lot of desire to do the very best that they could, and for a generation of children, it was wonderful. You are still talking about it and thinking about it. Have you shared it with your kids yet?
We've watched the first episode with Alexander. We actually started the first chapter of Prince Caspian today. Actually, he said he wanted to go on. I was like, all right, let's do this.
Wow.
We spoke about them, doing new things. Well, we actually have Gollum before Gollum, because as Edmund travels to the witch, the way they have Edmund's internal monologue happen is sort of a ghost version of himself that he argues with and that then later makes fun of him when it's very clear that the witch isn't going to make him a prince.
Yeah, that was a little bit psychological, for certain. I find that my overall reaction, I saw them in 1990 or something, and I have never been tempted to go back and watch them again. I bought them. I have them on CD or something, but that's mostly as a collector. I'm like, okay, I get it. I see what you're trying to do.
Well, it's also the story behind the story. It's like watching this again with adult eyes. It's clear that they went looking for a stone lion and couldn't find one. So that when Edmund turns up at the witch's house, that whole scene is skipped right over.
Yeah. Those figurines a lot of them were very small. I noticed. Yeah.
But then we get to the witch's house, and Barbara turns it up to 11. And she's also much more explicit in this version when she says without bells. That's sort of how it ends with the book. But in this one, she goes on and says, there'll be no warning. We'll burst upon them. She really spells out, hey, I'm evil.
Yeah. Barbara turns it up to 11.
Dude, we're going to have to, Batesian rigidity, we're going to have to skip and hop to these next few episodes here.
I know. It's so difficult. There's so much to say. But in episode 4, the children pack up and leave. The witch dispatches Morgrim, and she takes Edmund in the sleigh. The children escape. They rest at the hiding place for beavers. They meet Father Christmas, who gives them gifts. And the witch turns a party of animals into stone. Spring arrives, and the children finally see Aslan. So actually a lot happens in this episode. And they do the same thing that they do throughout the series. They really like having two scenes side by side to ramp up the tension. So in this case, it's what the witch getting ready to leave and the beavers getting ready to leave. And you actually only even find out that they've escaped when Morgrim turns up at their dam.
I appreciate it in here. I know this is more the back part of the episode, but when the witch runs into that party, am I correct if I'm remembering this, that she warns them, don't say Aslan has arrived or something, and one of them just can't help but belt it out.
The baby squirrel.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
The funny part for me was Mrs. Beaver packing up, and eventually it cuts to a scene where Mr. Beaver has to prise a vase of dried flowers out of her hands, and even then she needs one last think. And I was going to ask the Lazos. I think in every couple there's a Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. Andrew, who are you?
Oh, we know Andrew's Mrs. Beaver in this one.
Yeah, but I mean,
not even a question.
Mr. Beaver does have his nice pint of beer.
He does.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just leave it at that for the sake of our marriage. I do sometimes, when we show up with 5 suitcases for a 2-day event, I do sometimes want to label them so everyone knows it's not me in my shoes.
I love it.
It's usually me and my books.
That's the point.
But somebody's got to pay for the trip.
The books, I love it.
Yeah, I do recall this is the one scene where, like, my impression as a 20-year-old was, could they not have afforded a few more dogs?
2 is all you need.
2 is all they get. And it's really dark, so you can't tell they're German Shepherds or whatever they were. But close enough, right? Moose, stag. But yeah, I think they were, it was interesting to see the gifts with Father Christmas and the party scene. You're starting to get a sense of more of the creatures in Narnia. And I do like what they did with Aslan as far as having him. I mean, he did look very huggable, and as opposed to, I'm thinking of the costume from the earlier one, from the black and white ABC, where like really creepy in a leotard kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like this Aslan a lot better.
Mm-hmm. And they also use that side-by-side cutting technique for Mr. Beaver and the witch arriving at the party. You think that she's seen them, and it's actually, of course, she's seen that party and he's seen Father Christmas. It's a technique that I really like, and particularly if you don't know the story. But as you say, they meet Aslan, and then in episode 5, Aslan then shows Peter Cair Paravel. Peter then kills Morgrim, the witch summons her friends, tries to kill Edmund, fails, he's rescued, and then the witch and Aslan negotiate for Edmund's life. Then Aslan's party leaves the stone table. They go to the forest rather than the Falls of Baruna, and then later that night, the girls follow Aslan back to the stone table, where the witch's minions are waiting. So, Christin, you told us a little bit about Aslan. How about you other two? What do you make of Aslan?
I loved the witch. I struggled with Aslan.
It's the way he sort of speaks.
Yes.
It was jarring even as a kid, I remember.
Yeah, I thought to myself, this whole thing could be a great audio. I think I did actually say it in the beginning, audio book, except Aslan. I just struggled with him. Cute fur.
I think that it's an impossible task.
Yeah, it is. I agree. It's hard.
But I wish that somebody would really do it well. In some ways, it's like Lewis talking about describing angels. It's impossible to describe that something so heavenly. And I wish that they had gotten it better. I wish that. But I mean, with the Aslan, you want him to be the voice of your dream of goodness and holiness and all that's best. I'm not a huge fan of the Liam Neeson Aslan.
No, me neither.
I don't. Yeah, so I'm tough to please.
Andrew, you say it well there. You said it well there, and I'd add one layer to it. You want him to be like this incredible sense of goodness and holiness, but also have this roar as well, like this both and that is probably near impossible to strike in terms of communicating.
And I think that, when you think about Jonathan Rumi and how well he does, how believable he is as Jesus in The Chosen, I mean, I sometimes find myself when watching The Chosen forgetting that he's an actor. He really kind of captures a lot of that. I don't care so much for the put on accents in The Chosen, but his wit, his character, his strength. There's so much of it that he gets right, and it's tough to do, I think. So
that's a good
It's the
point.
Archangel fragment problem. It's the reason that Lewis gave up writing his angel version of Screwtape.
Exactly.
It's got to drip with heaven, and that's really difficult to do at the very least, if not impossible.
Sure, absolutely.
But they do make quite a few departures from the book in this section. The children of the beavers, they don't argue as to who should go first towards Aslan. Rather than leopards holding his standard, they've got 2 dark-skinned large fawns, which I thought were really cool as a kid. I really liked them, and those definitely stand up. And Susan does blow her horn to bring Peter back, but she's no longer in trouble. It's just Morgrim hanging out at the stone table, and they go into this, I call it duel mode. I discover it later with the Jedi Knight games. If you're in multiplayer and you challenge one person, everything else sort of blurs out and goes red, just so that the two of you can fight. And watching this again as an adult, the fight is longer and more explicit than I thought it would be.
It was very interesting how they did that and like singled them out and made the colors change and felt like Mortal Kombat. And it was very interesting.
Well, they actually did exactly the same thing in He-Man the movie at the end, but they did that because they ran out of budget. So all they could have is Dolph Lundgren fighting Skeletor.
Yeah, that was one thing too that I guess was challenging was the scope. You wanted to feel that it was full of creatures and full of and the armies and all of that, and that's where some of the digital special effects are helpful in really filling out the covering the hillsides with these armies instead of it being the 20 or 30 people. But again, whatever changes they made, they kept the story moving forward toward a more faithful adaptation, and you really get a sense of what happens in the books just from this film.
And I love the scene where Edmund is rescued and you have all the animated creatures coming to get him, even if you can see his leg moving through the Pegasus's wing, which is a bit weird. But I noticed that as a child, but I still loved it.
Yeah.
So I'd always wanted to ride a Pegasus. That was a personal dream of mine. Could still happen.
Yes.
Another difference was that the Queen, the witch, she brought her friends by incantation. The boggles and the hags and everything else. That it's all the animated creatures she calls, which was super creepy to me as a child. And we actually just finished reading, doing a reread at his instigation. Alexander asked for it, and he had lots of questions about all of the people that. In the book, the witch tells the wolf to come and bring. It's like, what are they? So I had to find some child-appropriate pictures of all of those horrible creatures.
Oh my!
Well, and I love the narrator who says, I would describe it more, but your parents wouldn't let you keep reading the book, right?
Well, you see, it's funny you say that because one of the interviews that I found, it was a morning TV show that my parents used to watch. They had Barbara Kellerman and the girl that played Lucy on there. And they were taking calls from the viewers. And one mother called in and she spoke about all of the violence in the show. And all I could think of watching it is like, oh, standards have changed. But at the same time, particularly since I am watching this with my son, my 4-year-old son in mind, it's like, no, there are some bits of this that are kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the scene at the stone table was definitely one that I found rather intense even as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was intense. I would agree with that. The extreme mockery. There was the way I would almost describe it, which could be distressing for a child, is the depravity of it. It actually did a good job with the depravity of it. And you're not, I would imagine as a young child, you're not as exposed to that kind of just like animalistic savagery. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but I would agree. That's almost like, even though it's not gory or something, it's unsettling to see that side of human nature.
I think the girls sell it as they're hiding in the bushes crying.
Yeah.
Every time they cut back to them watching it back as an adult, that was what I found most compelling.
Well, and a fairy story is not made for children. A fairy story is supposed to have these elements of terror. I mean, Tolkien talks about that in On Fairy Stories, and Lewis and Chesterton all mention it. And so I don't mind a little bit of terror because there is such a happy ending at the end. I wonder how many people really suffered from traumatic nightmares because of this.
Ugh, Morgrim and his wet mouth.
Yeah.
All right, David,
So
last episode to round this baby out in 3 minutes.
Not through. Oh my goodness, yes. So I was looking at how long we've been recording. It's like, wait, I still have 10 more minutes. It's like, oh no, I don't. So Andrew might drop off at this point. So, but since he said negative things at the beginning, that's okay. So
I always say negative things.
True. The girls free Aslan from the stone table. He comes back to life. Aslan brings all the statues from the witch's house back to life, and they join the battle with the witch. And needless to say, the children are crowned, they grow older, they chase the white stag, and then they come back to our world and then eventually visit the professor to explain why some things in the wardrobe are missing. Any thoughts about that section?
Yeah, I thought the conversation with Aslan and the girls was helpful. I don't remember the book super well. So was it his point that he didn't know that it was going to happen? Is that all true to the book too?
He said it hadn't been tested. And they actually did tweak the dialogue a little bit. In the book, he says death will work backwards. Here it says death will be denied.
Oh,
Okay.
which is different.
But it was also, but in the book, it wasn't tested too. So that was a Lewis thing. Oh, all right. I did appreciate the breathing on the people.
Those special effects I thought were superb. That
Yeah.
Aslan's breath brings everything back to life, even a fountain.
Yeah. And then
yeah.
the orange starts in the bottom and works its way up. I actually did think relative to the other special effects, they did a good job with that. Yeah. So I liked it. Actually, this was, I thought, the best episode.
It was nice to see the kids playing on the beach. I hadn't thought about the beach of Cair Paravel very much, but to see them out there and then see them as grown and having a wonderful adventure. Although it occurred to me, I just how as they tumbled out of the wardrobe and they were all excited to get back to the professor, like, what a letdown. Wouldn't you want to stay in Narnia forever
Yes.
and be an adult and have all these adventures?
I love
That
how
would be,
Peter was
like,
checking his
crushed.
beard now that it was gone.
Yeah.
And I also love the fact
Yeah.
that they played on the beach, but they did it in their crowns. Because
Yes.
if you're
Yes.
king or queen, you do it in a crown.
Always a king or queen.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do need to jump off, but before I go, there's another Downton Abbey Narnia connection. Beginning next February in theaters in a theater in London, Hugh Bonneville, Lord Grantham, is playing Lewis as Shadowlands. So
I think
That's
it'd be great.
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he would be a passable professor, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Although I do think of the professor as hairy.
That's
So
true.
we've got to see how
Yeah.
he looks in a beard.
Yeah. Well, forgive me for dropping off, but Lazo Major, I'm sure, will carry the side. So
I gotta say this too, Andrew, as you drop off. Speaking of beard, whoever's trimming your haircut and doing your beard, 10 out of 10.
thank
Best
you.
I've
Just
ever
got
seen
the
of
haircut
yours.
today,
Yeah,
and I haven't trimmed up
Yeah,
the
looks
beard.
good.
So, yes,
Wow, looks
listeners,
good.
here you go.
I'll have our audio engineer clear up that static sound of you rubbing your beard against your microphone.
See you, Father Lazo.
Now, one of the things that was that made me chuckle as the witch is preparing to attack, the dwarf is saying, "Oh, our people, the hags, and it's like they're never quiet." And she says, "Well, they'll have to be quiet otherwise." And then she just goes and turns one of her people, looks kind of like Skeletor, immediately into stone.
Yes.
It's like, well, that wasn't very wise, was it? But at least it sort of communicates her disdain for pretty much everyone other than herself. But also in that scene, the witch is complaining that they didn't get to Peter's camp earlier, and the dwarf said that they would have expected them to attack by night. It's like, so they're gonna attack under the cover of daylight. I don't think the dwarf is a great strategist.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but he's there. It's a good. I can see why you have such special memories of this, and it's fun to hear from somebody who really loved it and really experienced it, in all its glory as a child. Like I said, I have a new perspective on it. Some of it is getting older and wiser, I hope, and being able to appreciate people's good intentions and doing, giving it their all, but also to see what other people enjoy about it and to go, yeah, you know what, that's right. That was kind of cool. That was kind of fun. I'm not sure if I would have thought about it, certainly didn't when I was 20.
And they did have to get creative. I mean,
Yeah.
for example, the section of the book where Aslan dives at the witch, it's kind of vague as to what exactly happened. Did he eat her? Sort of sounds like it. But in this version, he roars, causes an earthquake, and then she falls from this high place. Which, given, if you ever watch any of the interviews where they talk to the people who made Aslan, I mean, I actually think he was quite mobile considering what they were doing. But there's no way on earth they could have done anything else. They couldn't have had him leaping at the witch. I don't think that would have really have worked.
I have to say, it stuck out to me, and I must have missed it in the book, at the end when Lucy's wanting to stay with Edmund. And
I'm
Aslan
really glad they
is,
kept that.
yeah, he's harsh. No one else needs to die for his sake. I was like, ooh. Like, I don't know, it just didn't stick out with me in the book when I had read it, but when you hear that, I'm like, oh man, he's not holding any punches.
Yeah, they also cut to her siblings, so that you see their reactions as well. So it's like, oh, this is because Lucy basically does nearly nothing wrong the entire series. There's only a few points, and this is really her first one.
But that kind of sternness and kindness, both of which are the nature of God. Sometimes we grow up hearing his sternness emphasized, or it's all grace and kindness. But we need both. And I get a number of times in my life when the Holy Spirit has needed to check me about something. What's come to me is that face of Aslan speaking to Lucy in those one or two moments where suddenly he's stern
Daughter
with
of
her
Eve.
and lets her know, she has stepped out of bounds. The other one is when she's, I think she's about to read that spell in the book in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and you just know. All he has to do is look at you, and you just know, whoa, I better rein this back in. So I'm glad they included that too.
One thing that I didn't like was the crowning, because in the Walden Media version, they have Mr. Tumnus and their friends crown them. In this one, it's sort of a magic crowning out of nowhere. Wasn't a great fan of that. But what I did love was the use of Mr. Tumnus to act as chronicler to explain the time jump. That was wonderful.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask at the
Yeah.
end if there's anything that you think that the next Netflix movies should adapt. And one that I really like is, I like the idea of having a storyteller, a chronicler, and it might as well be Mr. Tumnus. I always used to say, C.S. Lewis could do it, but I'd absolutely forgotten that Tumnus was the chronicler at the end of this, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I think that's great.
That's going to be a tough question to answer, by the way.
Well, you've got a few more moments to think about it, because the last thing I wanted to address was the final scene with the professor, which is my favorite scene of the whole thing. When he repeats, "Once the King of Narnia," it's like, oh, goosebumps. And when they leave, they close the door, and because he's put his head right down near his work as before when he dismissed, by ignoring them, Peter and Susan when they came to talk to him about Lucy, and he does it again. It's like, what do they teach them in these schools? Puts his head down, starts scribbling away. The children leave, and then he looks up a little bit, and there's a twinkle in his eye and a smile, and there's more story. I lost it. I thought that was great.
Wow.
And now you've had that second or two more. Matt, as a final question, any closing thoughts, or has watching this adaptation given you any thoughts as to how you would like the Netflix adaptation either to avoid or to copy from this BBC version?
Avoid, Aslan. I could do avoid a lot more. As much as it might be more accurate, Narnia is a magical overall kind of thing, and I think they got to make sure that that's a magical feel when you walk through that wardrobe. And so I think they really got to play that up. But I don't have anything as profound as you of like an entire rescript of having someone write and be a chronicler. Yeah.
What about you, Kristen?
I think that that's a great idea with Tumnus. I like you. That was something that jumped out at me watching this series. I think as Matt was talking about the enchantment and the beauty and the Christmas snow, I think what I'm really, I really loved about Narnia is the beauty of it and trying to imagine that beauty. And so with all the Tolkien and other stuff that's come out over the last few years, some of these Rings of Power series and whatever, I don't even care that the characters aren't that great. I don't care. What I'm after is the beauty of seeing the architecture and the elves and the special effects, which enriches my own imagination.
Yes.
So I hope that they'll do it beautifully.
Yeah.
But if they're faithful to the book, even if they have limitations, then the power of the story still comes true. So, rings true and it comes to effect. So I hope that my biggest hope is that they'll be faithful to the story.
The funny thing is I almost have a counter hope, because the funny thing about the BBC adaptations is less so with the sequels, is that it is very book faithful, word for word, dialogue for dialogue. A lot of it is great and I absolutely love it. However, people do often comment, this feels kind of slow. And so I think, at least for The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, we have a book faithful adaptation. And so I'm more open to more creativity. Trouble is, it seems that Greta is going to be starting with The Magician's Nephew, and I want her to make that faithful. And at least the few bits and pieces that we've seen coming out of it thus far, it looks like she's getting a little bit more creative than I was hoping. I do think these BBC adaptations are, and particularly when we go, because next season we'll do Prince Caspian and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because that was the next round that they did. And you get to see the advantages and disadvantages of staying so close to the text. And how sometimes departing from it can really enrich it. And we spoke about that at the beginning with regards to like the train view, the train journey, and a couple of times at the house, that actually adding non-canonical dialogue actually really helped. So I think my only hope is that Greta has watched these and has seen some of the things that work and some of the things that don't work. How you can use Lewis's beautiful dialogue to produce something wonderful, but also how you can make adaptation to make something that's much more enjoyable to watch.
But that's true to the spirit of it, maybe.
Exactly.
True to the spirit of the books and not a complete departure.
Well, I hear the call for final drinks. So thank you to our stenographer, Julia. Where is that from, David? When do we start putting stenographer in? Is that like a real thing?
She used to be our intern, but she's been with us for too long now. I can't keep calling her our intern. So she writes down our show notes. Stenographer was the best word I could find. If anybody has any suggestions, let me know.
That just started changing. I'm like, this is funny. And our sound engineers, Taylor and Sarah, and all our Patreon supporters, particularly our top tier ones. Ryan, Dan, Jody, Dave, Brian and Meg, Rebecca, Sarah, Mark, Kevin and Paul, Bud, James, Robert, Mark, Matt, Erica, Joelle, Amanda, Thomas, Shane, Becca, Paul, Gary, Stephen, John, James, Kate, Peter, Rowdy, David, and Angela. And of course, we thank you all for listening to us. And we pray for all of our listeners every time we release an episode.
So please join us next time
when we'll continue going further up
and further in.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.